So I think we can like steer this into our first official question, which was um, how does it feel to start completely fresh on a new piece of art? Um, and like I usually describe it, I teach music, and I usually describe it to students as like the reduction of infinity. You know, a blank canvas is the scariest thing. Um,
Uh-huh.
is How do you confront the initial hurdle?
Yeah, this comes up a lot. People say this about animation too. They say, in animation you can do anything. Um,
Yes.
and it's like, I don't want to do anything. I want to do something, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's there are you could say there are limitless possibilities, but there are a lot of limits. And to me, the art form is choosing what your limits are going to be. Like, I think it's really challenging starting with that blank page. I like to think of the problem. I can't just jump into finding solutions. I need to know what I'm solving for first.
Yes.
So so I try to create limitations for myself and then enjoy those pushing the limits that I've
Yeah.
given to myself. I need the problem first so I can start finding the solutions.
Yeah. Um, right. I feel like I have a cheat code for it, at least with music composition, which is I have a template project that I open up every time, and it has a piano and one note written into the track. And
I
then,
like that.
yeah, so it allows me to be like, okay, it's not empty. And now I have this little note that I'm going to move around and see what I want to do with it. Or maybe I'll just go in and delete the note. Similar to how,
Right.
like, I've heard it like in Blender. I don't know anything about Blender other than it starts with a default cube, and you have to delete the default cube and make a new one. Um, so
Nice. So it's not a blank page. Yeah.
yes, I think that makes it a little less daunting, and then you kind of have to find the fun. Um,
Yeah.
this goes into the next question, which is, um, at least in my experience, we don't really know what the art is about until we're like halfway done, or even almost all the way done with it. So, like specifically to your album, well, if you'd want to introduce your album that's coming out on August 29th, and then talk about how it
Yes.
came to be.
Yes. The album is called Lonely Magic. Comes out on the 29th. The single from the album, Hill to Die On, came out on August 15th with a music video. My first live action music video, which that was really fun.
Mm.
Um, but yes, it's my sophomore album. It's very different from Spiral Bound, which was my first album.
Hmm.
Um, and
How would you
it's
describe
about
its?
my
How would you describe its
oh,
different?
um, I wanted a lot more room for Jeff Ball to do. I wanted to do something a lot more cinematic, and I basically tried to treat my story the way I would treat one of the cartoon characters' stories, with all of the drama and Broadway influence. And it's a rock opera. It has a continuous story that runs through it,
Wow.
um, and it's been really challenging. Like I said, it's even with the first album, it's been hard to figure out how to get there and kind of um, tell a personal story the way I tell those
Yeah.
stories. And then also, I think I needed a little distance from the experience. So yeah, Lonely Magic is about my experience as a working artist. Animation has origins in parlor and stage magic, and so I just have these very complicated feelings about the ways that I've dedicated my life to this optical illusion.
Yeah.
But also, the animation has created all of my most important relationships, and it sort of keeps influencing. I mean, encompassing my personal life. And so I
Yeah.
wanted to talk about. I think it's very related to what you're talking about on this show. Throughout just the process of making the art that I've made over the last 15 years has come with this roller coaster of just what was going on behind the scenes.
Right.
And there are little bits of that story inside of all the cartoons that I made through the characters, but Lonely Magic, I'm putting in all the pieces that weren't there in the show and connect dots between the story that was going on in those songs, especially Love Like You, which we wrote over multiple years when I was just really going through it. So, and it starts in art school and then it ends with what I've concluded, at least at this moment, from the experience I had, which was a commencement speech. I gave a commencement speech to an art college in Maine, and so I wrote it as a song because I've written a
Yeah.
lot more songs than speeches, and that I just really wanted to convey what I meant to the students because I think this is a very difficult time to be graduating and looking forward to a career in commercial art, um, or fine art, or just a career in art right now. This was not an elevator pitch,
No,
but
no. This is it's perfect. I think that conveys a lot of what you want to say with the album, and it also sounds very ambitious, especially going from your last album, which was what was it 6 tracks?
yes, this is seven. They're much longer.
Yeah,
I had to shake the habit of writing 30-second songs for animated TV,
yeah.
which is sort of jingle sized. But also, the Spiral Bound songs were totally inward facing. I didn't know if I was ever going to share those songs. And so this I approached very differently. I started with the song Hill to Die On, which was written for Toby Jones's movie AJ Goes to the Dog Park, which is this really funny micro budget indie
Oh,
comedy. That song is the end credits, and that was the first song that I wrote for the album. And he came to me and said he said he felt he had, in a way, the film had ended up being about his Cartoon Network experience, and so he wanted a song that captured that captured this feeling of sort of how do I explain it? Waking up 10 years later and you've devoted your entire life to this work, and suddenly you're 10 years older,
yeah.
and then you look back on all of it and you're so burned out, but you would do it again because it was the best, most fascinating time, but it just flew by.
Yeah.
And so I tried to capture that in this song, and that really kicked everything off, which was like, oh, how do I work forward and backward from being in the thick of it, doing that work and pouring your heart and soul into it, and how did I get there, and where did I end up, and so that's really what kicked it off. Remind me
Yeah.
how the question started.
Well, I was just about to ask. So it was for this movie. And so what I really want to know is how do you remember how it exactly started? Do you remember if you put down a chord or a melody or a word first?
Yes. Well, I did have the thought. I had when I was working on Spiral Bound, I now think in terms of like giant franchises because I've been sort of trained to
Yes.
work on. I was doing like the Stephen show and the games and the books and everything simultaneously. So as I was working on Spiral Bound, I was already thinking about wanting to do the next album, which I had thought about as a sequel called Spellbound, which would be about um, being a writer and magic. Like that, I had those
Yeah.
general concepts, being a working artist and magic. And the first one had been about recovery, so then I thought the second one could be about the work. So the loose thought was there. And then when Toby came to me and he pitched me this idea, he kept describing getting lost in this work, which is, I mean, I agree. I was completely lost in the work. And so the first thing I had started for the song was I was working on a hook that was sort of like something to get lost in. It doesn't matter, Well, I don't even want to sing it because it's corny. It wasn't. I was like, yeah. I had. That's what I started. There's something to get lost in thought is where I started, and for months I was just kind of thinking about this hook, and it just did not feel right. And I was just like, oh, he's gonna need this song. I've got to get this to him because he's working on his film, and his film was almost done. And then there was a night. Uh, there was a night where it was actually right before Spiralbound came out, where I was sitting down and I was like, I have got to figure this out, and I was playing with that hook, and then I realized that the thing that wasn't working for me about it is that that is not how it felt at that time at all. Like I had no perspective that I was getting lost in this work at all. In that moment, all I could think was nothing matters but this. This is the most important thing. Everything else, can be
Yes.
set aside. My health, my life, all of it is just getting backburnered because I just have to charge towards this singular goal and prove that this thing is going to work. And as soon as I realized that, the whole song spilled out in a night.
Oh, wow.
All the entire lyrics, start to finish, the hook. It's actually such a strange song because, at least in my mind, the chorus for "Hill to Die On" is instrumental. It's a melody, which I wanted to be kind of like this feeling of just like the dizzying free fall of like I'm doing this. Is this working? Yes, it's working. Oh, it's so beautiful. Oh, it's so horrible. Like just that's I don't know if that would even count as a hook.
Yeah.
I've never quite written a song. I did. There were many songs for the show that kind of had to spill out in a night because I was working so quickly, and I couldn't work during the day because I was running the show. But this is the first time a personal song that's happened for that, and I
Yeah.
just kind of finished it in an absolute daze, and I recorded it into my phone, and I sent it to Toby, and I was just like, think this is, I think this might be the best song I've ever written. And he
Yes.
was like, I like it. So I was happy with it, but it kind of felt like it came out of thin
Yeah.
air. Crack this code of like, no, really remember how it felt
You're right.
inside of it, and also realizing that the damage it was doing to all of my closest relationships, and having to square that with the passion I had
Yeah.
for the work I wanted to do.
That I think that resonates really a lot with me too. I think I tend to get really, really focused on things, and
Yeah.
I will work myself to death, and then come out the other end. Usually, I will have injured myself somehow. Um,
Yes, totally
and
understand.
yeah, I injure myself. I don't see my friends. I've barely fed myself. Um, and I'm upset that I did all of it, but I'm so happy that I finished it. And like I made it the way I wanted to make it. Um, yeah, um, so after you recorded the track in your like a voice memo, then I'm assuming now you've gone back and like fully produced it and fleshed it out.
Yes, I brought it to Jeff Ball, and we were talking about what it meant, um, and I really wanted it to depart a lot from the acoustic guitar version that I had recorded. I wanted it to feel like big,
Yeah.
uh, and powerful, and we worked together to create this sort of. I wanted it to feel like a march. I liked the thought of like literalizing. The hill to die on is a term that I would always hear, which for used by showrunners to say like, oh, it's the thing that I won't compromise on. There are other things that I'll let go, but it's like I'm ready to lose everything to make this to make this the way that it needs to be. So I had my hill to die on Steven Universe and
Yeah.
various, when I was writing for Adventure Time, things that I would just not bend on, um, no matter how extreme things got, or how much of a risk it would be. And so we started really treating it like an actual march, like a real
Oh,
battle,
interesting. Yeah.
with the actual marching drums, and then Stamage came in and did this solo. Actually, that was really fun to talk to him about, because I wanted this just soaring, and it was really meaningful to me to have him come because he had been Greg Universe's guitar on the show. So having people who'd been with me working on the show, working on this song about working on the show was really meaningful. And I wanted a solo that would just like dive and soar and be scared
Yeah.
and be furious and just he said to me after, he's like, oh, when people usually describe um when they describe what they want from a song, they don't talk about it like that. I kept talking about it in story and character terms, where I'm like, this part is the running, and this part is the fumbling, and this part is the reaching, and
Yeah.
there's insecurity here, but then there's confidence here. I just wanted to get that whole feeling of just like um, fighting really, really hard
Yeah.
for something. And he just did the most incredible piece for it.
Yeah.
Uh, that was fun too because I got to show that ultimately to Toby, and he's like, "Oh, it's so incredibly different from the acoustic
Yeah.
version that I had sent him." But it really was. I had hoped that it could be that it could feel, big and dramatic
Yeah.
and like a journey, and that was a big. This kicked off all of Lonely Magic, where I really felt like, I wanted that song to be a whole emotional arc and journey, and then I wanted the whole album to be one too. So that was the beginning of trying to create that, and then seeing that through. Some of the other tracks that are on there were actually written much earlier, but I included them because they were part of the story. One of them is even from 2009 when I first moved out, before I ever wrote anything for TV. But I placed it where it would go. It's like there's this one song about being in art school, then the song I actually wrote when I was just out of art school, then Hill to Die On, which is about the job that I was doing in the beginning. So everything, they're all written at
Yeah.
different times, but they follow the same story.
That's so cool. That brings to mind like when you're an artist, especially throughout decades, the things you make become like touchstones for yourself of where you were at in that moment.
Yes.
Um, and it it is a way of memory for yourself. Like, oh, I remember exactly where I was when I wrote that. Um, or, oh, I was horribly injured right after I wrote that. Something like that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think too. I mean, I've been creative partners and partners with Ian Jones Cordy for, um, gosh, since 2007. So however many years that has been. Um,
18.
but yeah, 18, for 18 years. And now everyone knows math is not, I'm mostly 13. Um, but I think too, like he's seen that for me too, and we've been working together for that too. And there are these points I was making in college. I made a comic called Pug Davis, which was like a pulpy space
I read
adventure.
about Pug Davis.
Oh yeah, well, and there was a point on Steven where it just turned a corner and became fully sci-fi space stuff.
Hmm.
And Ian was the first to know, like, oh, it's just become Pug. Like I just keep coming back to these things that they just feel right, and I'm like, oh right, it's this again, these like original things that I had wanted to do. So I love having that
Right.
um keep returning to. It's like when you're really coming back to yourself. There were a lot of things in Steven Universe that were really unlike my work, but then every once in a while it would come back
Hmm.
to the kind of comics that I had started out making,
Yeah.
and remind me what I love and who I
Right.
am in this funny way. And the music feels like that too, kind of it's coming back to a lot of the songs I wrote for the show and why I wanted to write them, and getting a chance to write like that, but for something independent is incredibly cathartic. I feel like yeah, I'm just, it feels like
Yeah.
remember who you are.
Hmm. I, and I don't know. I think um, it's you kind of like create. What am I trying to say? I think especially when you're writing and you don't want to always write the same thing, whether this is music or animating or writing, like, then I usually describe it as, oh, this is my guilty pleasure when I write this specific style.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
That's how I felt about Other Friends. I was like, I felt like I almost wasn't allowed to do something I was having that much fun
Yeah.
working on. Like just
Some
this full on goofy Fleischer 30s. Oh man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny how that works, and there is it's not a shame, but it's like I shouldn't do that because I feel like I shouldn't enjoy myself that much. Um,
Yes, what is that? I know exactly what you mean. And it's so strange because
yeah,
why wouldn't you want to dive headfirst into
right.
the exact thing that is fun? Um, what is that?
Yeah,
I know exactly.
I don't know if there's any psychologists out there, let us know. Okay, we'll take a minute or two break, and then we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Mary Lee from Smith Puzzles.